Welcome back, nerds. Fino here. I finished Akihabara Explosion on the first day, more or less. What I didn't finish was the event guide I was supposed to do. But let's say our positions are reversed. You're a responsible YouTuber but not a responsible gamer and the clock's ticking away. Don't worry, I've got all the tips and tricks you need to beat this event in record time. What makes Akihabara Explosion so hard to do in one sitting is that it's a tower event. For those of you who weren't around for Setsubun or the Jeff Bezos event, this style of event requires you to navigate 200 floors of a tower, with each floor being a single battle. There are two big obstacles to your progress. First is that outside of a few story fights, you can only use your own servants. So you're not going to Castoria or Scotty loop your way through every fight. The second is that your servants become exhausted after each encounter, going on cooldown for several hours. Because of this combo, you're encouraged to only use 3 servants per floor, which is the minimum. All standard battles will consist of 1 or 2 waves, so the ideal is to either run 1 AoE servant and 2 fillers, or 2 AoEs and 1 filler. Your access to meter is one of the biggest factors limiting how fast you can clear each floor. If you have a kaleidoscope or super scope, they can make your progress significantly faster, and these should go on your AoE servant. Failing that, your charge supports are extremely important and you should save them for double waves. 50% batteries like Waver, Castoria, Rhaenys, and Scotty are the most valuable, but don't sleep on the smaller chargers like Mash, Nero Bride, Helena, Asclepius, and Shakespeare among others. Getting these guys either leveled or skilled up should be a high priority during your downtime. After your charge supports, take a look at your self-charging attackers. Ones with 50% batteries or unlocked charge appends let you exploit the large number of 50% CEs in this game, and pull back on your need for charge supports. For instance, a good team composition for a double wave would be a Reshkull with aerial drive, Jalter Lily with K-scope, and a filler servant like Lancer Diarmid. Jalter blows up the weaker first wave, and then a Resh charges up to finish off the boss wave. This state of affairs is what makes the Mages Association Mystic Code your equipment of choice for most encounters. The 20% battery will activate any regular K-scopes, while the card shuffle gives you a mulligan if your filler servants ruin your hand. If you don't have any ways of getting fast NPs, things are going to get more complicated. You'll have to rely on face cards. Thankfully, you have 2 tools to make your life a bit less miserable. First is the free event CE, no strings. You get copies for getting to certain floor milestones, and it acts as a star dump. It also amplifies bond gain for the equipped servant, party bond if you give it to Mesh. Now there are people that run large parties and multiple copies of this to maximize their bond gain, but if you started late, that's a very efficient way of failing this event. What I would do with this is to put it on a single target servant to get the benefits of that star dump. If necessary, you can have them follow up on your AoE NP with crits. The Gacha CEs for this event grant damage bonuses. You get a copy of the Neza CE, which gives a bonus to 3-star and lower servants. The 4 and 5-star CEs work on their respective rarities and below, if you're willing to roll for them. Galatea herself isn't necessarily the greatest catch. I have a servant guide on that if you want to know more. But City of Dreams provides a defense ignoring effect with a full attack investment, which is pretty good. What I would do with the Neza CE though is to keep it on one of those filler 3-stars so you can face card as needed. As you progress through the tower, you unlock rest areas that reduce the recovery time of your servants, 1 per slot. Servants also have an affinity for particular spots, and if you put them on those locations, they'll recover even faster. My recommendation is to keep your 50% charge supports and major attackers in these rest areas. However, in my own run, I noticed I had a nasty shortfall of AoE sabers and assassins, so keep an eye on those. Berserkers act as generalist attackers, so you can have them sub in as necessary. They're also tempting rest area targets. For Zerks, I'd recommend holding them until you're at the end of your first big push, so you can see which classes you're lacking options in. Finally, Caster Nitocris can, with a K-scope, kill 2 waves by herself, so you should treat her as a high priority pick. Another tip I have to maximize rest area efficiency is to use these high value servants immediately. They're going to be overkill for the initial floors, but fill the rest areas with them as you unlock them. If you do it right, most of them should be available by the time you're done with your initial push. With a small roster, it might be a little while longer, but either way you get an extended run before you're required to sit and wait. Once you exhaust your roster, you may notice that you have a massive surplus of AP. Take advantage of this to gather any missing Ascension items or QP or do strengthening quests. As for Embers, that depends on how underdeveloped your roster is. The event itself gives you a fair bit via floor rewards, so you can lean on that to fill out a few gaps. Now, if you have every servant in the game, you can actually clear the first 100 floors and then some pretty much without stopping. But odds are you aren't a psychopath, so expect things to take longer. For reference, I did the entire event in one sitting, and there is, in fact, a video of this over on Fino and Friends. You know, in case you need some company for your last-minute tower run. The whole process took me a little over 10 hours, so you should treat that as a best-case scenario and allocate hours over multiple days instead. To budget your resources, pull up the encounter list online. The most important thing this will do is tell you whether the node you're about to fight will have 1 or 2 waves. It'll also tell you the upper end health values you have to deal with. This lets you allocate the weakest attacker that'll clear the node without taking 500 years, and save your mid to high quality servants for nodes that really matter. You don't want to be stuck with Hector for a beefy double node. Now let's go over a few notable encounters. As you approach their floors, I'd recommend keeping a good counterpick in reserve. If you get hardwalled by one of these, you're gonna hemorrhage time. Your first major obstacle is on floor 100. This pits you against 2 Galatea battles. The first of these is an endurance fight, so just use the crappiest servants you think can hold the line without getting wiped out. I found St. George quite useful here since he can keep her at bay for several turns and stuff her Noble Phantasm with a bit of protection. The second Galatea fight is a 3-bar affair where she hides behind a damage resistance buff. It only comes down for a turn when she uses her NP, which leaves you with two options. One is to nail her with an extremely powerful attacker like Super Orion and just plow through her protection with massive crits. The other is to play the waiting game, using servants like Potato Jean to stun her on regular turns and protect your team against her Noble Phantasm. Then you keep your attacker's NP in reserve and counterattack the turn after. Couple of things to remember though. Galatea has break bar effects where she'll drain some charge and stars, meaning you should keep a bit extra if she'll NP the turn after. Galatea also has her 100% defense skill, which she can use to stall out your final push. Either get rid of it with 2 face cards into a Noble Phantasm, or bring someone who can bypass defense buffs. Once you get to the Meat Tower, every 10th floor will feature a major enemy. Floor 110 is Ruler Martha, who gains attack and defense buffs at the end of every turn. You absolutely need a strong attacker to kill her as quickly as possible. A half-decent Avenger like Gorgon or a good Berserker would be my recommendation. If you take too long to finish her off, Martha will become too tanky to kill and she'll systematically blow up your team. Floor 120 is Salieri, who just gains an attack and defense buff on break, but isn't much of a threat otherwise. The rest of the node features Berserkers, so it's a good chance to use Summer BB, Jinako, or Summer Kiara. Floor 130 pits you against Nursery Rhyme, who summons trash mobs until you take her down. Floor 140 is a match against Summer Abigail, and it's one of the most annoying nodes if you don't bring countermeasures. She has a quote low chance to put you to sleep on her face cards, but I ended up sleep locked for ages since I forgot to bring the Atlas uniform. Don't make that same mistake, and also try to keep your frontline alive. If Abby gets you into a 1v1, things can get very ugly. Floor 150 is Tamamu and Elizabeth. Just blow them away with single target damage. Honestly, their effects are pretty trivial. On floor 160, you're up against Jack, who gets additional damage against women. Floor 170 is Meltverless, who can charge rain on hit. Floor 180 is Moon Cancer Kiara, who can apply debuffs at the end of every turn. Keep the fight short and you'll be alright. Floor 190 features a Guda triple threat. Of these, Okita has accelerated charge and should be a high priority to take out. And the final floor has Emiya and Benny Enma, each with break bars. Despite their relatively low health values, they're quite dangerous, so you should keep some rocket fuel to deal with them. They start the fight with a suite of debuffs to your defense and damage output. Consider a Castoria NP so you can do a first turn damage play. On break, Benny purges your defense buffs and seals your NPs, while Emiya purges your offensive buffs and seals your skills. On top of this, they also have skills that can drain your charge and stars and reapply their seal effects. There are also buff blocks, and they have the ability to fully charge themselves with Sure Hit at the cost of NP sealing themselves. Their non-break bar skills are themed as them preparing a meal, so maybe they only do it once? I made sure to finish the fight before they could prepare a second course, so I don't know if they repeat these mechanics. But either way, my recommendation is to take someone who can pop both their bars and sacrifice your frontline so they'll eat the resulting debuff / Noble Phantasm combo. Then have a finisher clean up Benny and Emiya once you're out of steam. Once you finish floor 100, you get access to the Challenge Quest. This consists of 3 consecutive boss fights. The first pits you against Blackbeard with 11 revives and an automaton that buffs and charge accelerates him at the cost of removing one of his revives. There's not really a fast way of dealing with this, and you just have to weave in your face cards to take multiple lives a turn. You do have some advantages though. Firstly, Blackbeard has a relatively long charge bar, so even with his charge being boosted, you have time. You should bring protection though, unless you want to intentionally sack your frontline. On that front, I'll notice that the challenge quest doesn't have the tower's fatigue restrictions, so you can bring a support and use your full roster. Once you take out Blackbeard, you can move on to round 2 against Jinako and some mid-boss enemies. Jinako herself is packing 10 stacks of chance-based invuln. She can also give a variety of buffs to the random enemies including evasion, sure hit, and charge, so finish them off if your AoEs aren't quite up to par. On break, she'll summon an additional ad, so sweep the field again to stop it from surprising you. The final battle is against Osakabe Hime. She does you a solid by healing your frontline to full, but don't think she's gonna roll over. There's a Dojin trash mob on the field and it charms on hit. While it's out and about, Oki gains an attack and invuln pierce buff. If her Dojin ever gets destroyed, she'll summon a replacement. On break, your opposition gets accelerated charge with a small heal every turn. This challenge quest has no knight class servants, consisting entirely of cavalry classes and Jinako. Because of this, alter egos do particularly well, especially Kiara, who can grind this fight out with only a modest amount of backup. Her Noble Phantasm offers an excellent counter to most of the mechanics in this fight. She can heal herself during the Blackbeard phase, her invuln pierce lets you bypass Jinako's protection, and her defense ignoring effect means Oki can't stall her out. You just need a half-decent answer to the book's charm effect and you're golden. If at all possible, I'd recommend pulling an alter ego Kiara off your friends list for this fight. If they have the 5-star gacha CE, all the better. Finally, you'll notice that as you clear the tower, you unlock 10 AP extra quests. These have fatigue like the tower, but also put on additional restrictions like only being able to run men. The generic 3-turn strats are good enough for some of these, but a couple are annoying. The ninja shop has Sail Shinobi that'll summon copies of themselves until you defeat the original, and you also have to fight this node just using assassins. The Ultrim Shop is a boss dragon that'll NP as its first action, so if you enter that wave with a Siegfried NP fully charged, that would be ideal. The Escape Mansion restricts you to neutral alignment servants, and each room requires you to defeat the door enemy. The second door can only be opened with quick attacks, and the third door needs a noble phantasm to open it. Ideally, you'd have a neutral rider with a quick NP for this node. The noble facility will periodically drain everyone's NP gauges, so get ready for a slow and obnoxious face guard fest. Might be worth saving a battery servant for the final wave just to make sure you can take out the boss once you remove their invuln stacks. The Hero Experience Theater pits you against a number of trash mobs which you need to defeat within 5 turns or else you lose buffs. The second wave has a boss where you gain additional damage by stacking your double phantasms. If you have any left from wave 1, use them all at once. The Medjet Clothing Shop limits you to King Trait servants. To defeat the Sphinx, you need to reduce its protection by defeating the Medjet outfits. However, you'll want to pack multiple AoEs for this since each Medjet reduces its killer's max health, leaving you quite vulnerable towards the end of the fight. The last extra quest is Fused Robot Museum, and it has a number of enemies that have particular buffs: Accelerated Charge, Guts, Defense, and Crit Chance. Once you're down to a single enemy, it'll gain all of these effects. In all likelihood, it's going to be Cerberus, so try and keep its health low before you finish off its other allies. With this, you should have all the information you need to race through Akihabara in record time. It's still quite an undertaking, so I'd recommend starting as soon as possible. Treat 11 hours as the absolute minimum time you need to clear the main tower, and be sure to budget more if your account has fewer servants. It's a marathon, but if you want to play it more like a sprint, remember these tips and good luck. Again, I have a full run of the main tower and challenge quest over on Fino and Friends, which you can get to via the link on screen. Like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more, and come watch me on Twitch where I stream every weekend, 3 PM Pacific time, Friday through Sunday. Twitch.tv/Finotaisen. See you there.